That afternoon I learned that fear tastes like blood in your mouth. My name is Emily. I am 66 years old, and for a long time I believed that a mother's love could conquer anything. I believed that being a good person was enough. I believed that giving my entire life for a son was enough for him to respect me. I was wrong. Today I'm going to tell you something I kept hidden for years, something I was ashamed to admit even to myself. Because there are pains that one hides not out of cowardice, but because saying them out loud means accepting that the world we thought we lived in never existed. It all started one October afternoon. I was in the kitchen of my house, that house I bought with the sweat of 40 years working as a school teacher. The walls smelled of cinnamon and fresh coffee as always. Outside, the lilac bush I planted when Michael was born was still blooming in the yard, purple and bright and faithful. I heard the door open. I recognized his steps immediately, heavy and hurried. "Mom, we need to talk," Michael said from the living room. His voice sounded different, harder and colder. I left my coffee cup on the table and went out to meet him. He was wearing a wrinkled shirt, and his eyes were shining in a strange way. Behind him came her, my daughter-in-law Linda, with that smile that never reached her eyes. "Good afternoon, Emily," she said, almost singing. I did not answer. Something in my chest warned me that this visit was not casual. "Sit down," Mom ordered Michael. He ordered. He did not ask me, he ordered me. I sat in the armchair where I had rocked him so many times as a child, where I read him stories, where I taught him to pray. Linda closed the front door. The sound of the lock froze my blood. Michael took a folded paper out of his pants pocket. He threw it on the coffee table. "It is a power of attorney," he said. "You are going to sign it." I did not understand, or I did not want to understand. A power of attorney. What? For son. So I can handle your things. The house, the bank accounts, everything. My heart began to beat slowly as if it wanted to save strength. "Michael, this house is mine. I worked my whole life for it." He leaned toward me. His face was so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "Exactly, Mom. You worked. You are old now. You cannot handle all this anymore. You need help." "I do not need help, son. I am fine." Linda let out a giggle from the other side of the room. That laugh went through me like a knife. "Oh, Emily, do not be difficult. It is for your own good." Michael straightened up. He walked to the shelf where I kept the family photos. He took one, the one of his father, my husband, the man who died 12 years ago, leaving me alone with the promise that our son would take care of me. "Do you think Dad would want to see you like this?" Alone, stubborn tears began to burn my eyes, but I did not let them out. "Your father would want me to decide about my own life." Michael slammed the photo on the table. Too hard. The glass of the frame cracked. "Sign it, Mom." "No!" That word came out without thinking, firm, clear, and then it happened. Michael took off his belt. The black leather slid through the loops of his pants with a sound that I still hear at night. He wrapped it around his right hand. His knuckles turned white. "I'm going to ask you one last time, Mom. Are you going to sign or not?" Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read you. I looked at the belt. I looked at my son. And in his eyes, I found nothing of what I had known for 42 years. "I am not going to sign anything, Michael." Linda clapped slowly from her corner, as if she were watching a play. "Oh, how brave," she said, with that sweet voice she always used when she wanted to hurt me. "Look at that. Grandma has character." Michael raised the belt. I closed my eyes, and just at that moment, someone rang the doorbell. Ding dong! The sound echoed throughout the house. Michael froze. Linda stopped smiling. "Who is it?" she asked with a threat of a voice. "I do not know," I whispered. They rang again, this time louder. Ding dong! Ding dong! Linda walked to the door with slow steps. Michael hid the belt behind his back. She opened it, and then she started screaming. Linda's scream brought me back to reality like a bucket of cold water. She stumbled back with her hands over her mouth, her eyes wide. From where I was sitting, I could not see who had knocked, but I heard a male voice, serious and calm. "Good afternoon. Is this where Mrs. Emily lives?" Michael dropped the belt to the floor. The leather hit the tiles with a dry sound. Who are you?" he stammered. Two men entered my living room. One wore an impeccable gray suit and a leather briefcase. The other wore a uniform. A police uniform. "I am Attorney Ernest Miller, the family lawyer," said the one in the suit, "and this is Officer Martinez. We received your call, Emily. We came to ensure that no one forces you to sign anything." Linda started shaking her head as if she could undo what was happening with pure movement. No. This is a misunderstanding." Officer Martinez looked at the belt on the floor. Then he looked at Michael. He said nothing, but it was not necessary. "I did not make any call," I said with a broken voice. Attorney Miller approached me with slow, respectful steps. He crouched down to be at my eye level. "I know, ma'am, but someone who loves you very much did." At that moment, I understood everything. I understood who had called, and I understood that my life was about to change forever. But let me tell you how I got here, because a story like this does not start in a moment of terror. It starts much earlier in the days when everything seemed perfect. When Michael was born, I was 24 years old. I was an elementary school teacher at a public school downtown. My husband Richard worked in a textile factory. We did not have much, but we had enough. And we had love. I remember the morning I brought Michael home for the first time. I wrapped him in a sky blue blanket that my mother had knitted for him. Richard drove slowly with such care as if the whole world were made of glass. "Here we are, my love," he told me when we arrived. "Our family is complete." And I believed him. We raised Michael with tenderness and discipline. We taught him the value of work, respect, and keeping his word. Every morning before school we had breakfast together at the kitchen table, sweet rolls and hot chocolate. I would ask him about his dreams, and he would tell me with those bright eyes of a child who still believes everything is possible. "Mom, when I grow up, I am going to buy you a huge house," he would tell me with his mouth full of muffin. "With a garden and a pool," I would ruffle his hair. "I do not need a huge house, son. I just need you to be a good person." Richard laughed from the other side of the table, reading the newspaper with a cup of coffee in his hand. "This boy is going to give you everything, Emily. You will see." And I wanted to believe him. With all my soul, I wanted to believe him. On Sundays, we went to church, the three of us. Michael put on his white shirt and black shoes that were always a little too big, because I bought them thinking they would last longer. We sat in the third pew, always the same one. Richard on the aisle side, me in the middle. Michael next to the wall where he could rest his head on my shoulder when the sermon got long. After Mass, we walked through the downtown square. Michael ran after the pigeons. Richard held my hand. And I thought with absolute certainty that this was happiness. That and nothing else. When Michael turned 12, Richard gave him a red bicycle. It was not new, but he had restored it with his own hands. He changed the tires, painted the metal, adjusted the brakes. "It is yours, son," he told him. "Take care of it. The things one takes care of last a lifetime." Michael hugged it as if it were pure gold. "Thanks, Dad. I promise I will take care of it always." That bicycle lasted 5 months. Michael left it outside one rainy night, and it rusted. Richard said nothing to him, but I saw the sadness in his eyes. And I saw something else, something I did not want to name at that moment. Disappointment. When Michael was 17, Richard got sick. It was fast, too fast. A pain in the chest that at first seemed like indigestion, then dizziness, then the diagnosis, the heart. He spent 2 months in the hospital. I went to see him every afternoon after teaching. I brought him lemon jello, his favorite. I read the newspaper out loud to him. I told him gossip about the neighbors to make him laugh. Michael went less. He always had homework. He always had exams. There was always something more important. One afternoon, Richard took my hand in his. They were cold, too cold. "Emily, promise me something." "Anything, my love. Take care of Michael. But do not spoil him too much. That boy needs to learn that life hurts." I did not understand what he meant. Or maybe I did understand, but I did not want to accept it. Richard died on a Tuesday morning. I was at school when they called me. By the time I got to the hospital, it was too late. They let me enter the room. His body was still warm. I closed his eyes. I kissed his forehead, and I promised him in a low voice that I would take care of our son, that he would never lack anything. That promise was my first mistake. After the funeral, Michael changed. He became quiet, distant. He spent hours locked in his room listening to music I did not understand. He stopped having breakfast with me. He stopped telling me things. I tried to get close. I made his favorite dishes. I ironed his clothes. I left money on his dresser for his expenses. "Son, if you need to talk, I am here," I would say, knocking on his bedroom door. "I am fine, Mom," he always answered, without opening. Years passed. Michael finished high school. He entered the university to study business administration. I paid every tuition fee with my teacher's salary. Sometimes I had to work double shifts, give private tutoring, bake cookies to sell on weekends. I did not care. He was my son, my only son. When he graduated, I threw a party in the backyard. I invited all the neighbors. I made pot roast rice salads and lemonade. I hung colored flags between the trees. Michael arrived late, and he arrived with her. Linda. She was tall, thin, with dyed blonde hair and long nails painted red. She wore a tight dress and very high heels. She greeted me with 2 kisses in the air without really touching me. "Nice to meet you, ma'am. Michael has told me a lot about you." Lie. I knew it immediately. Michael never talked about me. "The pleasure is mine," I answered, smiling. But something inside me shrank, something ancient, something my mother used to call the eye of experience. That night, after everyone left, Michael stayed to help me pick up the plates. It was the first time in months we were alone. "I like Linda," I told him, although it was not entirely true. "She is going to be my wife, Mom." I dropped a glass. It shattered against the kitchen floor. "Your wife? Have you decided already?" "Yes, we are getting married next year." I picked up the glass shards with trembling hands. One cut my finger. Blood stained the kitchen towel. "Do you love her?" Michael did not answer immediately, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. "It is my decision, Mom. I know, son. I just want you to be happy." He bent down to help me with the glass. "I will be. You will see." But when he looked at me, there was something in his eyes that was not happiness. It was fear. And I, like all mothers who love too much, decided not to see it. The wedding was in June, a month I had always liked because the city sky turns a clean, almost childish blue. But that June was gray. It rained the day of the ceremony. I had saved for 2 years to help them. I paid for the venue, the food, the cake, the flowers. Linda wanted white roses, thousands of white roses. I counted every dollar that came out of my wallet. But I said nothing. "It is for my son," I repeated to myself. "It is for his happiness." The night before the wedding, Michael came home alone. He sat at the kitchen table where we had had breakfast together so many times and stared at the cup of coffee I had served him without tasting it. "Are you nervous, son?" I asked him, sitting across from him. He nodded slowly. "It is normal. Your dad was also nervous on our wedding day. He messed up the vows 3 times. I tried to smile. Michael did not smile back. "Mom," he began, and then stopped. "Tell me, son, whatever it is." He looked up. His eyes were the same as when he was 5 years old and came running to hug me after school. But now there was something broken in them. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me?" The question went through me like a hot wire. "Of course, Michael. Your dad loved you more than anything in this world." But I did not go to see him as much as I should have when he was in the hospital. I got up from my chair and went around the table to hug him. I put my hands on his shoulders. They were broad now, strong. He was no longer my little boy, but he was still my child. "Your dad understood, son. You were young. You were afraid." "I am still afraid," he whispered. "Of what?" He did not answer. He just hugged me, tight like he had not hugged me since he was a child. And I felt in that hug a goodbye. The ceremony was in a small church in the neighborhood. Linda arrived half an hour late, as she said elegant brides did. I was sitting in the first pew in a navy blue dress I had bought on sale. Next to me was Mrs. Robinson, my lifelong neighbor who had come to keep me company. "The boy looks handsome," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Just like his dad," I answered. and tears began to burn my eyes. When Linda entered, everyone turned. She was wearing a huge white dress with rhinestones and a train so long that 2 little girls had to carry it. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile, too. Too perfect, too rehearsed. She walked to the altar with slow steps to the rhythm of the music, but she did not look at Michael. She looked at the guests as if she were on a runway. The ceremony was quick. The priest spoke about love, patience, forgiveness. Linda sighed with impatience. Michael kept his eyes fixed on the floor. When the priest asked if he accepted Linda as his wife, Michael took 3 seconds to answer. 3 seconds that felt like an eternity. "I do." His voice came out hoarse, broken. Linda smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. The reception was in an event hall near the church. There were more than 150 people. I only knew 20. The rest were Linda's friends, Linda's family people, who spoke loud, who laughed louder, who drank without measure. I sat at a table in the back next to Mrs. Robinson and some teachers from school. No one invited me to sit at the main table, not even Michael. "Should you not be over there with the bride and groom?" asked one of the teachers, pointing to the table where Michael and Linda were toasting with champagne. "I do not want to bother," I answered. But the truth was different. No one had invited me, and I did not dare to go. Halfway through dinner, Linda asked for the microphone. She stood up with her sparkling dress and her glass raised and began to speak. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with us on this very special day, especially my family, who has always been there for me, and Michael, of course, for choosing me as his life partner." She paused. People applauded. "And I also want to thank my mother-in-law, Emily, who had the detail of helping us with some expenses for the table. I had paid for almost everything, but I said nothing. I just smiled from my table in the back. And when Linda pointed at me with her hand, everyone turned to see me as if they had just realized I existed." Mrs. Robinson squeezed my hand under the table. "Breathe, honey. Just breathe." That night, when the party ended, I helped clean the tables. The waitresses tried to stop me. "No, ma'am, we will take care of it." "It is no bother," I answered. I needed to do something with my hands, something to help me not think. Michael and Linda went early on their honeymoon to Hawaii, all paid for a gift from her parents. They did not say goodbye to me, they only sent me a message the next day. "We arrived. All good. We will call you later." They did not call. When they returned 2 weeks later, I had cleaned and fixed up the house they were renting. It was a small apartment in a neighborhood half an hour away. I painted the walls, washed the windows, put up new curtains, filled the fridge. "Oh, mother-in-law, you should not have bothered," Linda said when they saw everything. But her tone was not of gratitude, it was of annoyance. "It was no bother, dear. I want you to start well." Michael said nothing. He just walked through the apartment with his hands in his pockets, looking at everything with an empty expression. "Do you like it, son?" I asked. "Yes, Mom. It is fine." But he did not look at me when he said it. The first months were quiet. I visited them on Sundays. I brought them food, pot roast casseroles, whatever I had cooked. Linda always received me at the door without inviting me in. "Oh, mother-in-law, how sweet. But right now we are busy." Michael appeared behind her, looking tired. "Mom, we better meet another day. Okay?" "Of course, son." And I left with the full containers in my hands, wondering what I had done wrong. While I tell all this, I think about where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. One afternoon, 6 months after the wedding, Michael came to my house without warning. He knocked on the door so hard, I thought something terrible had happened. "What happened, son? Are you okay?" He entered without answering. He collapsed on the living room sofa. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes. His hands were shaking. "I need money, Mom." "Money what for?" "To pay some debts." "What debts, Michael?" He ran his hands over his face. Linda took out some credit cards. She bought a lot of things. Clothes, shoes, I do not know, and now we cannot pay. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. "How much do you owe?" $10,000. $10,000, almost 3 months of my salary. "Son, I do not have that money." "Yes, you do, Mom. I know you have savings." It was true. I had savings. I had kept them for years for my retirement, for when I could no longer work. Michael, that money is for what, Mom? What are you going to use it for if you live alone? I am your family. I should be your priority. His words hit me like stones. You have always been my priority, son. Always. Then help me, please. I looked at my son. I looked at the man he had become, and I recognized nothing in him. But he was my son, and I had promised Richard I would take care of him. It is okay, I whispered. I am going to help you. I gave him the money the next day. Michael took it without looking me in the eye. He did not thank me. He just said, I am going to pay you back, Mom. I promise. He never did. 2 months later, he asked me for money again. Then again. And again. It was always the same. Linda bought. Michael asked. I gave. Until one day, a Saturday afternoon, Michael arrived with Linda. Both of them, serious. Mom, we need to talk to you. Of course, son. Sit down. Do you want coffee? No, Mom, we do not want coffee. We want to talk about the house. The house, Linda crossed her arms. She was wearing a new sweater, camel color, soft, expensive. This house is too big for you alone, Emily. It is a shame to have it empty. It is not empty. I live here. Yes, but you are one person. We are two. And soon we will be more. It took me a second to understand. Are you pregnant? Linda smiled. For the first time, her smile seemed real. 3 months. I should have felt joy. I should have screamed, cried with happiness, hugged my son. But the only thing I felt was fear. Congratulations, I said with a flat voice. Thank you, mother-in-law. That is why we need more space. And we thought the most logical thing would be for you to come live with us in the apartment. And we stay here. The world stopped. Michael leaned forward. He put his hands on my knees. Mom, think about it. The apartment is smaller, easier to maintain. And here there are 3 bedrooms. The baby needs her own room. Michael, this is my house. I bought it. I paid for it. I know, Mom. No one is taking anything from you. We are just asking you to lend it to us. For a while. For a while. And then what? Linda sighed with impatience. Oh, Emily, do not be dramatic. We just want the best for your grandchild. I looked at Michael. I searched his eyes for some sign of the child he had been, of the boy who ran after pigeons in the square, of the boy who promised to buy me a huge house when he grew up. I found nothing. Let me think about it, I said. Michael stood up. Linda, too. There is not much to think about, Mom. It is your grandchild, your family. And they left. That night I did not sleep. I sat at the kitchen table looking at the cup of coffee getting cold between my hands. And for the first time in many years, I thought about Richard, about his last request. Take care of Michael, but do not spoil him too much. It was too late. I had already spoiled him too much. And now I was paying the price. 3 weeks passed before they brought up the subject again. 3 weeks in which I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach, asking myself how I had gotten here. At night, I sat in the living room armchair, the same one where Richard used to read the newspaper, and looked at the walls of my house. Each one had a story. There was the mark from when Michael learned to ride a bike inside the house and crashed into the wall. There was the coffee stain I could never get off the floor. There was our wedding photo with Richard smiling and me in the white dress my mom had sewn with her own hands. This house was my entire life, and my son wanted me to hand it over. One afternoon, they arrived without warning. Both of them. Linda wore a loose pink blouse that barely showed her 4-month belly. Michael carried a yellow folder in his hand. Mom, we have good news, he said, sitting in the armchair, without me inviting him. What news? Linda settled next to him, putting her hand on her belly in that gesture all pregnant women make when they want people to notice their state. We know what the baby is, she announced with a singing voice. It is a girl. I should have felt something. Excitement, tenderness, hope. But all I felt was a cold emptiness in my chest. That is great, dear. Congratulations. Michael opened the folder and took out some papers. He put them on the coffee table. We talked to a lawyer, Mom, and he told us the easiest way to do this is for you to give me a power of attorney. That way I can manage the house, make the changes we need, and you can stay calm in the apartment without having to worry about anything. I took the papers with trembling hands. The letters danced in front of my eyes, words I did not understand, clauses, legal terms, power of attorney. What do you need that for, son? To be able to remodel, Mom. We want to make a room for the girl, paint it pink, put in a soft rug. You know baby things. But this house is mine, Michael. If you want to remodel, we can do it together. You do not need a power of attorney. Linda let out a giggle, that giggle that already put my nerves on edge. Oh, Emily, you just do not understand how these things work. If the house is in your name, we need permits for everything. It is easier if Michael can decide. Decide what? Everything, Mom. Michael intervened. Whatever is best for the house, for the girl, for the family. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at my son. Give me a few days to think about it. Linda's smile disappeared. A few days. What for you do not trust your own son? It is not that, dear. It is just nothing, mother-in-law. Either you trust us or you do not. There is no middle ground. Michael put his hand over Linda's, trying to calm her down. Mom, if you do not want to sign, do not sign. We will figure it out somehow, even if it is difficult. Even if the baby has to sleep in our bedroom because we do not have money to move to a bigger place. I felt the blow of guilt like a slap. I did not say I was not going to sign, son. I just asked for a few days. It is okay, Mom. Take your time. But the tone of his voice said the opposite. They left, leaving the papers on the table. That night I could not eat dinner. I sat staring at that yellow folder as if it were a bomb about to explode. 2 days later, Mrs. Robinson came to visit me. She always knew when something was wrong. She arrived with a pot of chicken soup and a bag of bread. Oh, Emily, you look terrible. What is wrong? I told her everything. The debts, the requests for money, the house, the power of attorney. Mrs. Robinson put the coffee cup on the table harder than necessary. And what do you plan to do? I do not know, Mrs. Robinson. He is my son. She is my granddaughter. It is your house, Emily. Your whole life is in this house. I know. But if I do not help them, what kind of grandmother am I? Mrs. Robinson took my hands. Hers were rough, full of years of work and sacrifice, like mine. Listen to me well, honey. I raised 4 children. 4. And I am going to tell you something I learned the hard way. A mother's love has to have limits, because if it does not, children eat it all, everything, until there is nothing left of you. But I do not want my granddaughter to suffer because of me. That girl is not going to suffer because you do not give them your house, Emily. She is going to suffer if she grows up seeing that her parents can manipulate her grandmother to get what they want. Is that what you want to teach her? I did not answer, because I had no answer. Mrs. Robinson stayed with me until late. When she left, she hugged me tight at the door. Think about yourself, Emily. For once in your life, think about yourself. But I could not, because that same night Michael called me. His voice sounded strange, choked. Mom, can I come see you? Of course, son. Did something happen? I am coming over now. He arrived half an hour later alone, without Linda. He had red eyes as if he had been crying. What happened, son? Where is Linda? At the apartment. We had a fight. Why? He collapsed on the sofa. He covered his face with his hands. Because I told her that maybe we were pressuring you too much, that maybe we should look for another solution. And she got furious. My heart leaped. For the first time in months, I recognized my son. Oh, son, come here. I sat next to him. I hugged him like when he was a child. He rested his head on my shoulder. I do not know what to do, Mom. She always wants more. More clothes, more things, more money. And I cannot do it anymore. I cannot take it anymore. Then tell her, no, son, set a limit. I cannot. She is pregnant. If I get difficult, she tells me she's going to leave, that she is going to take the girl. And I do not want to lose my daughter before meeting her. I felt something break inside me. My son was trapped, and I was the only one who could save him. Or so I thought. It is okay, Michael. I am going to sign the papers. He raised his head. He looked at me with bright eyes. Seriously, Mom, seriously. But on one condition, whatever it is, that you keep the house. But that it is yours alone, not Linda's. Yours alone. And when the girl is born, I want to see her. I want to be part of her life. Of course, Mom. Of course, I promise. He hugged me tight, so tight I could barely breathe, and I felt for a moment that I had made the right decision. I was wrong. I signed the papers a week later. The three of us went to the notary, Michael, Linda, and me. The notary read the entire document out loud, long, complicated words. I was only half listening. Do you understand, Mrs. Emily, that by signing this power of attorney, you are granting your son the power to manage, sell, mortgage, or perform any legal act regarding the property located at... Yes, I understand. And do you do it of your own free will without pressure of any kind? I looked at Michael. He smiled at me. That smile I had seen thousands of times when he was a child and asked for permission for something. Yes, of my own free will. Lie. I signed where they indicated, 3 times, with my full name. Emily Carter, widow. Linda clapped when I finished. Oh, mother-in-law, I knew you would understand. Now we are a real family. The notary handed us the copies. Linda put them in her purse, fast as if she were afraid I would change my mind. We left the notary office. It was hot. The sun burned my skin. And when are you helping me move to the apartment? I asked. Michael and Linda looked at each other. Soon, Mom. Very soon. First we have to arrange some things. What things, baby things, you know. And they left. I stood on the street with my copy of the document in my hands, feeling like I had just signed my death sentence. For the next 2 months, I tried to communicate with them. I called them. I sent them messages. I brought them food. I always received the same answer. We are busy, Mom. We will talk later. One afternoon, I decided to go without warning. I knocked on the apartment door. No one opened, but I heard voices inside. Laughter. I knocked harder. Michael, son, it is me. Open up. Silence. I knocked again, until my knuckles hurt. Finally, the door opened. Linda appeared in a silk robe, hair loose, perfect makeup. Oh, mother-in-law, what are you doing here? I came to see you guys. I have not heard from you in weeks. It is just that we have been very busy with the baby preparations. Can I come in? It is not a good time, Emily. It will only be a little while. I want to see Michael. Michael is resting. Please, Linda. She sighed. She opened the door just enough for me to see inside. The apartment was full of boxes, new boxes, with logos from expensive stores, baby clothes, furniture, toys. Where did you get money for all this? I asked. Linda smiled. That smile I knew so well. From the mortgage on your house, mother-in-law. Did Michael not tell you the world stopped? What mortgage? Well, the one Michael took out last week. With the power of attorney you gave him, they lent us $100,000. For the girl. To start well, $100,000. My house. The house I had paid for over 40 years. The house where I had raised my son. The house where Richard had died. Mortgaged. Where is Michael? I whispered. I already told you he is resting. Michael! I screamed. Linda tried to close the door, but I pushed her. I entered the apartment. Michael was on the sofa with a beer in his hand, watching TV. Is it true, son? Did you mortgage my house? Michael did not even turn to see me. We needed the money, Mom. But it is my house. Not anymore, Mom. Now it is mine. You gave me the power. You signed. I felt my legs trembling. But you promised me. You promised me it was going to be yours alone, that you were going to let me see the girl. Linda crossed her arms. And you will see her mother-in-law. When we decide. Now, if you excuse us, we have things to do. She took me by the arm. She kicked me out of the apartment. She slammed the door in my face. I stood in the hallway, alone, trembling. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it means to be completely broken. I went back to my house, or what had been my house. I went in. I sat at the kitchen table, and I cried. I cried for Richard, for not listening to him, for not setting limits when I should have. I cried for Michael, for the boy he was, for the man he had become. I cried for myself, for my naivety, for my blind love, and when I had no tears left, I got up. I washed my face, I looked in the mirror, and I made a decision. If my son had decided to destroy me, I was going to let him do it, but with dignity. I was going to stay in my house until they came to kick me out. I was not going to fight. I was not going to beg. I was going to keep the only thing I had left, my dignity, even if I had to lose everything. The next 3 months were the longest of my life. I stayed in the house as I had decided, but it was no longer my house. It was a borrowed place, a space where I was tolerated until they decided otherwise. Every night I went to bed wondering when someone would come knocking on the door. A bank, a lawyer, someone to tell me I had to leave because the mortgage had not been paid, because my son had decided to sell, because there was no place for me anymore. Michael did not call me again, not even when the girl was born. I found out on Facebook a photo of Linda in the hospital, with a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. The caption read, "Valerie Carter, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, the love of our lives, 500 comments, 500 hearts. 500 strangers celebrating the arrival of my granddaughter, and me, the grandmother, found out through a social network." I cried that night until I fell asleep, and I dreamed of Richard. I saw him sitting in the living room armchair reading the newspaper as he used to do. He looked at me over the pages and said, "It is time, Emily. It is time for you to defend yourself." I woke up with my heart racing and the sheets soaked in sweat. A week after Valerie's birth, I went to the apartment. I brought a gift wrapped in pink paper, a teddy bear I had bought with the little money left from my last paycheck. I had already retired from school. My pension was small. It barely covered food. I knocked on the door, once, twice, 3 times. No one opened. But I heard the baby crying inside. A high-pitched cry. Desperate. I knocked harder. "Linda Michael." "It is me. I just want to meet my granddaughter." The crying stopped. I heard footsteps. The door opened just a crack. Linda's eye appeared in the gap. "What do you want, Emily?" "I came to meet Valerie. I am her grandmother. It is not a good time. The girl is sleeping. But I just heard her crying. She fell asleep just now. Another day. Mother-in-law." "Linda, please, just let me see her for a moment. 1 minute." The door opened a little more. Linda was wearing rumpled pajamas, dirty hair, deep dark circles. Behind her, the apartment looked like a disaster. Clothes thrown everywhere, dirty dishes on the table. "Is everything okay, dear? Do you need help?" "We do not need anything, Emily. I already told you we are fine. But I could help you. I could cook, clean, watch the girl while you rest." Something changed in Linda's look. A spark. A calculation. "Really? Of course, dear. That is what grandmothers are for." She opened the door completely. She let me in. The apartment smelled of sour milk and dirty diapers. The curtains were closed. The light was dim, almost sad. "She is in the bedroom," Linda said, pointing to the back. I walked slowly with my heart beating in my throat. I pushed the bedroom door open, and there she was. Valerie, my granddaughter, sleeping in a white crib with her little fists closed next to her little face. She had dark hair like Michael when he was born, fine eyebrows, a small nose. She was perfect. I approached without making noise. I stood watching her for what seemed like hours, but were probably only minutes. I felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. "She is beautiful," I whispered. Linda appeared behind me. "Yes, she looks like Michael. Where is he working? He is always working. And how are you, dear? Are you resting?" Linda sat on the bed. Suddenly she looked very young, very tired. "I do not sleep. The girl wakes up every 2 hours. She cries all the time. And I do not know what to do." For the first time since I met her, I saw something real in her. Fear, exhaustion, vulnerability. "It is normal, Linda. The first months are difficult, but they pass. I promise. My mom says it is my fault, that I should have learned before having children. It is no one's fault. Being a mom is learned by doing." Valerie began to move. She opened her eyes. She had Richard's eyes. Dark, deep. "Can I hold her?" I asked. Linda hesitated. Then she nodded. I picked up Valerie carefully. I leaned her against my chest. She smelled like baby, like that mixture of milk and powder that is the sweetest smell in the world. "Hello, my love," I whispered. "I am your Grandma Emily, and I have waited for you so long." Valerie looked at me with those huge eyes, and she smiled, a baby smile, involuntary, but it pierced my heart. "Look, Linda." She is smiling. But when I turned, Linda was on her phone writing something. She was not even looking at us. That day I stayed 4 hours. I changed diapers, heated bottles, washed dishes. Linda went to shower, then she fell asleep. When Michael arrived, it was already night. He entered with his shirt wrinkled and his tie loose. "Mom, what are you doing here? I came to meet my granddaughter, and I stayed to help." Michael looked around. The apartment was clean, tidy. It smelled of food. I had made chicken soup. "Thanks, Mom. You are welcome, son." We stood in silence, him looking at the floor, me looking at him. "Sorry for not calling you," he finally said. "I have been very busy." "I know, son. I know. Do you want to stay for dinner?" It was the first time in months he invited me to stay, the first time he spoke to me without coldness. I would love to. The 3 of us had dinner. Linda hardly spoke. Michael neither. But I felt happy. For the first time in so long, I felt part of something. When I left, Michael walked me to the door. "Mom, could you come tomorrow to help with the girl? Just for a while." "Of course, son. Whatever time you need. Thanks. Really. Thanks." He hugged me. Quick. Awkward. But he hugged me. And I went home with something I had not felt in a long time. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things were going to get better. How naive I was. For the next few weeks, I went to the apartment every day. I became the unpaid nanny, the cook, the maid. I arrived at 8 in the morning. I left at 8 at night. I took care of Valerie. I cleaned. I cooked. I washed clothes. Linda spent the day in her bedroom, watching TV, talking on the phone, buying things online they did not need and could not pay for. Michael arrived late, always late, smelling of beer, of cigarettes, of places I did not want to imagine. One night when I was putting Valerie to bed, I found a paper under the crib. It was a receipt. From the bank. A late payment notice. The mortgage on my house. They had not paid for 3 months. 3 months. I put the paper in my purse. I said nothing. But that night I could not sleep. The next day I arrived earlier. Linda was still sleeping. Michael was getting ready to go out. "Son, we have to talk." "Not now, Mom. I am late for work. It is important." "Later, Mom." "Now, Michael." My voice came out louder than I intended. Valerie started crying in her crib. Linda came out of the bedroom with her hair a mess. "What is wrong? Why are you shouting?" I took the receipt out of my purse. I put it on the table. "What is this?" Michael did not even look at it. "It is a bank receipt, Mom. I know what it says. You have not paid the mortgage for 3 months. 3 months. What is going to happen to my house? It is not your house, Mom. It is my house. You gave me the power. Remember, I gave it to you so you would take care of it, not so you would lose it." Linda crossed her arms. She no longer looked vulnerable. She no longer looked tired. She looked furious. "Oh, Emily, always the same. My house, my house. You know what? We are fed up. Fed up with you complaining, fed up with you judging us. I am not judging you. I just want to know what is going to happen." "What is going to happen," said Michael, taking his keys, "is that we are going to fix it our way. And if you do not like it, well, I am sorry, Mom, but it is my problem, not yours." "What do you mean it is not my problem? It is my house." "Not anymore," he shouted. "It is not your house anymore. It is mine, and I am going to do whatever I want with it." He left, slamming the door. The sound made Valerie cry louder. Linda looked at me with those cold eyes I knew so well. "If you want to keep seeing your granddaughter mother-in-law, I suggest you shut up and do what we say, because if you bother us too much, you are not going to set foot in this house again. Did you understand?" I nodded with tears in my eyes, with a broken heart, but I nodded because Valerie was the only thing I had left, the only reason worth getting up every morning. And Linda knew it. That afternoon, while Valerie slept in my arms, I dialed a number I had saved years ago. It was the number of attorney Ernest Miller, the lawyer who had handled Richard's will when he died. A good, honest man, the kind that are rare these days. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello, Attorney Miller, this is Emily Carter speaking." "Emily, what a pleasure to hear from you. How are you?" "Bad, attorney. Very bad. and I need your help." I told him everything. The power of attorney, the mortgage, the threats, the fear. He listened in silence. When I finished, he sighed. "Emily, this is serious, very serious. Your son is committing financial abuse and you have the right to defend yourself. But he is my son, attorney. I do not want to get him in trouble. I understand. But you cannot allow them to strip you of what is yours. What do you want to do? I do not know. I only know I am scared. Scared of losing my granddaughter. Scared of losing my house. Scared of everything. Listen to me well, Emily. I am going to help you, but you have to promise me something. What? That you are going to stop being afraid, because fear is what they use to control you, and as long as you are afraid, they are going to keep abusing you." His words went through me like an arrow. "And what do I do, attorney?" "For now, nothing. Live your normal life. Keep seeing your granddaughter. But I am going to investigate. I am going to review the documents, and when I have everything ready, we are going to act. Act how you will see, Emily. You will see." I hung up the phone with my heart racing. I did not know if I had done the right thing. I did not know what was going to happen. But for the first time in months, I felt something similar to hope. The following weeks were strange. I kept going to the apartment every day. I kept taking care of Valerie. I kept cooking and cleaning. But there was something different in me, a quiet strength, a silent decision. I was no longer going to let them trample me, not anymore. One afternoon, while changing Valerie's diaper, I found another paper. This time, it was not a receipt. It was a flyer from a real estate agency. "We sell your property in 30 days. Hassle-free. Best market price." Someone had circled the word "sell" with red marker. I felt the floor open under my feet. They were going to sell my house. They were going to sell it. And I had no way to stop it. That night when I arrived home, everything looked different. As if it did not belong to me anymore, as if the walls knew they were soon going to have other owners. I sat at the kitchen table, in the same place where I had had breakfast with Michael so many times, where Richard had told me he loved me, where I had planned my whole life, and for the first time I allowed the rage to enter. Not just sadness, not just pain, rage. Rage against Michael for betraying me, against Linda for manipulating him, against myself for having been so blind. But above all, rage against the silence, against all those years of shutting up, of enduring, of saying yes when I wanted to say no. No more. I took my phone. I dialed Attorney Miller's number. "Attorney, it is Emily." "Emily, what happened?" "They are going to sell my house." Silence. "Then we have no time to lose. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, come to my office. We are going to prepare a strategy." "What kind of strategy?" "The kind your son will not expect." I hung up. I stood looking at the phone. And I smiled. For the first time in months, I smiled. Because finally, I had understood something. I was not going to get my life back by begging. I was not going to get my dignity back by pleading. I was going to get them back by fighting. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in the living room armchair with the lights off, watching the shadows the streetlight drew on the walls. I thought about all the decisions that had led me here, about every time I said yes when I should have said no, about every limit I did not set, about every sign I ignored. Richard had warned me. From his hospital bed with his heart failing, he had told me, "Do not spoil him too much." And I did not listen, because I thought a mother's love was infinite, that it had no conditions, that I should give everything without expecting anything in return. But I was wrong. Love without limits is not love. It is self-destruction. When dawn came, I prepared myself as if I were going to war. I showered. I put on the navy blue dress I had worn for Michael's wedding. I put on makeup for the first time in months. I combed my hair. I looked in the mirror, and I recognized the woman I had been before losing myself in the role of sacrificed mother. Emily Carter, retired teacher, widow, owner of a house paid for with 40 years of work, and no one was going to take it from me without a fight. I arrived at Attorney Miller's office at 9 in the morning. His office was in an old downtown building with mosaic floors and wooden stairs that creaked with every step. The secretary showed me in immediately. Attorney Miller was a man of about 60 with completely white hair and thick glasses that gave him the look of a wise owl. He received me with a kind smile and offered me coffee. Emily, sit down, please. Tell me everything calmly. I told him. Everything. From the beginning. The wedding, the debts, the power of attorney, the mortgage, the late payments, the real estate agency flyer. He listened, taking notes on a yellow pad. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Emily, your case is complex, but not impossible. The first thing we need to do is revoke that power of attorney. Can that be done? Yes. You granted it. You can revoke it, but you have to do it before a notary public. And your son is going to find out immediately. And if he gets angry, and if he does not let me see my granddaughter? Attorney Miller looked at me with those eyes that had seen too many family tragedies. That is the question all grandmothers in your situation ask me. And the answer is always the same. If you do not defend yourself now, you are going to lose everything. The house, your dignity, and eventually the granddaughter too. Because when your son sells the house and spends the money, who do you think he is going to come to ask for more? He was right. What do I have to do? First, we are going to make copies of all the documents, the power of attorney, the deed to the house, the late payment receipts, everything you have. Then, we are going to present ourselves to the notary to revoke the power. And finally, we are going to file a complaint for financial abuse and attempted dispossession. A complaint. Against my son. Yes, Emily. Against your son. Because what he is doing is a crime, and you have the right to defend yourself. Tears began to burn my eyes. Attorney, I do not want to get him in trouble. I just want to get my house back, to be able to live in peace my last years. I know. And that is why we are going to try the peaceful way first. We are going to notify him that the power has been revoked, and we are going to give him the opportunity to hand over the house without problems. If he accepts, there will be no complaint. If he does not accept, then what? Then we go to court, and there a judge will decide. I took a deep breath. I thought about Michael, about the boy he had been, about the man he had become, and I made the most difficult decision of my life. Okay, attorney, let's do it. We spent the next 2 hours gathering documents, copies, signatures, statements. At noon we went to the notary, the same notary where I had signed the power months ago. The notary recognized me. Mrs. Carter, how can I help you? I came to revoke the power of attorney I granted to my son. The notary looked at Attorney Miller. Then he looked at me. Are you sure this is a serious legal act? Once you revoke it, your son will no longer be able to act on your behalf, I am sure. Do you do it of your own free will without pressure of any kind? I looked at Attorney Miller. He nodded slowly. I do it of my own free will, and this time it is true. I signed where they indicated. Once, twice, 3 times. The notary stamped the documents. Done. The power has been revoked. Your son will be notified in the next 24 hours. We left the notary. The midday sun burned my face, but for the first time in months I felt something similar to freedom. And now what happens? I asked. Now we wait. Your son will receive an official notification. He can respond in 2 ways. Accept it and give you the house without problems, or refuse and force us to go to court. Which one do you think he will choose? Attorney Miller did not answer, but his silence told me everything I needed to know. That afternoon, I did not go to the apartment. For the first time in weeks, I did not go to take care of Valerie. I stayed home. I made chamomile tea. I sat in the armchair, and I waited. The phone rang at 6 in the evening. It was Michael. Mom, why didn't you come today? I was busy, son. Busy with what? You never do anything. His tone was irritated and impatient. With my own things, Michael. I have the right to have things of my own. Silence. Then I heard Linda's voice in the background. Ask her if she can come tomorrow early. I have to go to the salon. Mom, can you come tomorrow at 8? Linda has things to do. I cannot, son. What do you mean you cannot? You always come. Tomorrow I cannot. Mom, do not be like that. You are leaving us hanging. Something inside me broke, but not from sadness, from rage. I am leaving you hanging. Seriously. Michael, is that what you were going to tell me? What is wrong with you? Why are you being like this? Because I am tired, son. Tired of you using me. Tired of you only looking for me when you need something. Oh, Mom, do not be dramatic. I am not dramatic. I am realistic. And the reality is that I am not going to go tomorrow, nor the day after, nor ever again, until you and I have a serious conversation about everything that is happening. Conversation about what? About the mortgage, about the late payments, about your plans to sell my house. Silence. A long silence. Heavy. Who told you that I found the real estate agency flyer Michael under Valerie's crib? Mom, I can explain. I do not want explanations. I want solutions. Or better said, I want my house back. You cannot do that. The power of attorney no longer exists. I revoked it this morning. The silence that followed was deafening. You did what I revoked the power of attorney. You can no longer act on my behalf. You can no longer sell my house. You can no longer do anything without my permission. You cannot do that. I already did. And you are going to receive an official notification in the next few hours. I heard a thud, as if Michael had thrown something against the wall. Do you know what you just did, Mom? Do you know what this means? It means I took back control of my life. It means you screwed us. That is what it means. Because now we are not going to be able to pay the mortgage, and the bank is going to take the house, and we are going to end up on the street. Is that what you want? What I want is for you to stop blaming me for your decisions, Michael. You took out that mortgage. You stopped paying. You decided to spend the money on things you did not need. I am not to blame for that. You are my mother. You are supposed to help me. I have helped you all your life, son. But not anymore. Not this way. Then do not see your granddaughter again. Because if you do not help us, you have no right to be part of her life. His words went through me like knives. Are you threatening me with my own granddaughter? It is not a threat, it is the truth. If you are not with us, you are against us. And we protect Valerie from people who hurt us. Michael hung up. I stood with the phone in my hand, trembling. It had happened. What I feared most, what I had tried to avoid for months. They had taken Valerie away from me. That night I cried. I cried like I had not cried since Richard's death. I cried for everything I had lost, for everything I was never going to get back. But when I finished crying, when I had no tears left, I washed my face. I looked in the mirror and realized something. For the first time in a long time, the woman looking back at me from the mirror had dignity. I had lost my son. I had lost my granddaughter. I was probably going to lose my house, but I had not lost my soul, and that was the only thing that mattered. The next day the doorbell rang at 10 in the morning. It was Attorney Miller, but he did not come alone. He came with a police officer. Emily, can we come in? Of course, Attorney. Did something happen? They entered the living room. The policeman stood by the door. The lawyer sat across from me. Your son received the notification 2 hours ago and responded. What did he say? That he does not plan to hand over the house, that the power of attorney was valid, and that everything he did under that power is also valid, and that he is going to sue you for revoking it without his consent. I felt the floor move. Can he do that? He can try, but he is not going to win. The problem, Emily, is something else. What? The lawyer exchanged a look with the policeman. Your son contacted me an hour ago. He threatened to come to the house to force you to sign a new power of attorney. He said he was not going to allow you to destroy him. Force me how he did not specify. That is why we brought Officer Martinez to ensure your safety. My safety. From my own son. The lawyer looked at me with those sad eyes that had seen it all. Emily, when money is involved, people do things they never imagined they would do, even family, especially family. I remained silent, thinking about Michael, about the boy he had been, about the man he had become. Was he really capable of hurting me? I did not want to believe it, but deep down I already knew. The answer was yes. 3 days passed, 3 days in which I did not leave the house, in which every noise made me jump, in which I slept with the lights on and the phone in my hand. Attorney Miller called me twice a day to see how I was. He told me they had filed the complaint for financial abuse, that the process was going to take time, that I needed to be patient, but I no longer had patience. I only had fear. And on the 4th day, when I was in the kitchen making coffee, I heard someone open the front door. They did not knock. They simply entered with a key. Michael had a key to my house. I felt my heart stop. I heard his steps in the living room, then Linda's voice. "Where is she?" She must be in the kitchen. I froze with the cup of coffee shaking in my hand. And then he appeared. Michael. But it was not the tired and regretful Michael who had come to ask me for help months ago. He was another man with hard eyes, a tight jaw, and hands closed into fists. "Mom, we need to talk." "Michael, what are you doing here? I came to fix this once and for all." Linda appeared behind him. She was carrying Valerie in her arms. My granddaughter looked at me with those huge eyes, and I felt like I was dying. "Why did you bring the girl?" I asked. "Because I want you to understand what is at stake, Mom. This is not just about us. It is about her, your granddaughter. Or do you not care anymore?" "Of course I care. But then sign this." He took some papers out of his jacket pocket. He threw them on the kitchen table. I recognized the format. It was a power of attorney. Again. "I am not going to sign that, Michael." "Yes, you are going to sign." "No." Michael took a step towards me. His face was inches from mine. "Listen to me well, Mom. Either you sign that right now or you never see Valerie again. Never. Did you understand me? Never." Tears began to roll down my cheeks. "Do not do this to me, son. Please. You did it to me first. You revoked the power. You filed a complaint. You betrayed me. I did not betray you. I only defended myself. It is the same thing. No, Michael, it is not the same." Linda got closer. She put Valerie in front of my face. The girl reached out her little hands towards me. "Look, mother-in-law, look at what you are losing. Your granddaughter, your family, everything. Is it worth it? Is an old house worth this?" My hands were shaking. My heart was beating so fast I thought it was going to explode. And then Michael did something I never imagined. He took off his belt. The black leather slid through the belt loops of his pants with that sound I will never forget. A threatening whisper that filled the entire kitchen. Michael wrapped the belt around his right hand. His knuckles turned white. "Mom, for the last time, are you going to sign or not?" My voice came out like a thread. "No, Michael, I am not going to sign." Linda took a step back, moving away with Valerie in her arms. But she did not leave. She stayed there watching, waiting. "Then you force me to do this," Michael said. He raised the belt, and I closed my eyes. I still wonder if I did the right thing. "And you, what would you have done in my place?" But the blow never came. Instead, I heard the doorbell. Ding dong. The sound resonated throughout the house like an explosion. Michael froze, the belt hanging in the air. Linda stopped breathing. "Who is it?" she whispered. "I do not know," I answered with a broken voice. They knocked again, this time louder, more insistent. Ding dong, ding dong. "Do not open it," Michael ordered me. But I was already walking towards the door with my legs shaking, with my heart about to jump out of my chest. "Mom, I told you not to open it." I did not listen to him. I reached the door. I put my hand on the doorknob. I took a deep breath. And I opened it. Linda started screaming. At the door was Attorney Miller, dressed in his impeccable gray suit, his leather briefcase in hand, and next to him, Officer Martinez with his blue uniform, his badge shining under the afternoon sun. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Emily," said the attorney with a calm voice. "Is everything okay?" I could not answer. Tears began to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. Officer Martinez looked inside the house. I saw how his eyes settled on Michael, on the belt he still held in his hand. "Sir, can you drop that, please?" he said with a firm but calm voice. Michael dropped the belt to the floor. The leather hit the tiles with a sound that went through me. "This is a misunderstanding," Linda started to say. "We just came to talk to my mother-in-law." "To talk," interrupted Attorney Miller. With a belt, Linda went pale. Valerie started crying in her arms. Officer Martinez entered the house. He walked slowly with his hands on his belt where he kept his radio and his weapon. "Mrs. Carter, are you okay? Have they hurt you?" "No, officer. They haven't touched me." But were they going to? I looked at Michael, my son, my only son, the boy who had grown up in this house, the man who had just threatened me with a belt. "Yes," I whispered. "I think so." Michael shook his head. "No, Mom. I never... I just wanted to scare you so you would understand, so you would sign. Sign what asked the attorney. Linda tried to hide the papers that were on the table, but Officer Martinez was faster. He took them, read them. It is a power of attorney, he said, with broad and sufficient powers to sell, mortgage, and dispose of all of Mrs. Carter's assets. Attorney Miller approached the table, reached out his hand, and the officer gave him the papers. He reviewed them carefully. This is coercion, Michael. It is a criminal offense. You were trying to force your mother to sign a legal document under threat of violence. I was not going to hit her, Michael insisted. I just wanted her to understand what I asked with a broken voice, that if I do not give you everything I have, you are going to beat me. Is that what you wanted me to understand? Mom, you do not understand. We are desperate. The bank is going to take the house. We are going to end up on the street. And that is my fault, right? It is my fault that you took out a mortgage you could not pay. It is my fault that Linda spent all the money. It is my fault that you live beyond your means. You taught us to dream, shouted Michael. You told us we could have everything we wanted if we worked hard. I taught you to work, son, not to steal. And this is theft, stealing from your own mother. Michael collapsed into a chair, covered his face with his hands, and for the first time in a long time, I saw him cry. I do not know what to do, Mom. I just do not know what to do. Something inside me softened, that motherly instinct that never dies, that always wants to protect, that always wants to comfort. I almost approached him, almost hugged him, but then I remembered the belt. I remembered the threats. I remembered all the months of manipulation and lies, and I stayed where I was. What you have to do, Michael, is accept the consequences of your decisions, like adults. Attorney Miller cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Linda, you have two options. You can leave right now without making any more of a scene and resolve this in a civilized manner in court. Or Officer Martinez can arrest you for trespassing, coercion, and attempted fraud. You decide. Linda was the first to move. She walked towards the door with Valerie in her arms. She passed by me without looking at me. Michael stood up slowly. He looked defeated, aged, as if in one afternoon he had lost 10 years of life. Mom, leave Michael. Please, just leave. Are you kicking me out of the house where I grew up? I am asking you to leave the house that is mine, that has always been mine, and that you tried to take from me. He walked towards the door, but before leaving, he turned around. This is not going to stay like this, Mom. I promise you. It is not going to stay like this. Is that a threat? Mr. Carter said, Officer Martinez, in front of two witnesses. I suggest you leave before this gets worse. Michael left the door closed behind him, and I crumbled. Attorney Miller helped me sit in the armchair. Officer Martinez brought a glass of water from the kitchen. I drank it with trembling hands. How did you know they were here? I asked when I could speak. Attorney Miller smiled, a sad smile, but proud. We did not know. But when your son called me 3 days ago threatening to come, we decided to take precautions. We have been watching the house. When we saw them enter, we decided to act. Have you been watching my house for 3 days, day and night, Emily, because we knew your son was not going to stay quiet? And we were right. Thank you, attorney. I do not know what would have happened if you had not arrived. I prefer not to think about it, he said, putting the power of attorney papers in his briefcase. These documents are evidence. We are going to add them to the complaint. This strengthens our case considerably. Officer Martinez took photos of the scene of the belt on the floor of the papers, on the table of everything. Mrs. Carter, I recommend you change the locks on your house, he said. Your son has a key, and after what happened today, it is not safe for him to enter whenever he wants. I nodded. I had not thought about that. We should also consider a restraining order, added Attorney Miller, so your son cannot get within 100 yards of you or this property. A restraining order. Against my own son. It is for your safety, Emily. What happened today was serious, very serious. Your son crossed a line, and we do not know if he is willing to cross another. I looked at the belt still lying on the kitchen floor, the symbol of everything that had broken between us. "Okay," I said. "Do what you have to do." That night, after the lawyer and the officer left, Mrs. Robinson came to stay with me. She arrived with a small suitcase and a bag of sweet rolls. "I am not going to leave you alone, Emily, not today, nor the next few days." I did not protest. The truth is, I was afraid of being alone, afraid Michael would return, afraid of my own thoughts. We sat in the living room with a cup of herbal tea each. "How do you feel?" asked Mrs. Robinson. "I do not know. Empty, broken, but also relieved." Relieved. Because I no longer have to pretend everything is fine, because I no longer have to pretend my son is not hurting me, because I finally set a limit. Mrs. Robinson squeezed my hand. "I am proud of you, honey. I know how hard it was. I know how much it cost you. It cost me everything, Mrs. Robinson. My son, my granddaughter, my family. You did not lose your family, Emily. You discovered you never had it. Not in the way you thought. And that hurts. God knows it hurts. But it is better to know the truth than to live in a lie." She was right as always. That night I slept in my bed for the first time in weeks without taking sleeping pills, without waking up every hour startled. I slept deeply as one sleeps when finally letting go of a weight that did not belong to us. The next morning the locksmith arrived at 8. He changed all the locks, the front door, the back door, the garage door. He gave me 3 sets of new keys. "One for you, one spare, and another just in case," he said. I gave one to Mrs. Robinson. I kept the other 2. For the first time in my life, my house had locks my son could not open, and I did not know whether to feel safe or devastated. The following days were strange, silent. The house felt too big, too empty. I hoped Michael would call, would come, would knock on the door asking for forgiveness. He did not. Attorney Miller called me every day to keep me informed. The complaint had been admitted. The judge had granted the temporary restraining order. Michael was forbidden to approach me or the house. And the mortgage, I asked. "What is going to happen with that?" "We are working on it. We are going to prove that your son took out that mortgage fraudulently using a power you granted under emotional duress. It is not going to be easy, but we have a good case. And if the bank keeps the house anyway..." The lawyer sighed. "Then we will fight against the bank too. But let's go step by step. Emily, step by step." 2 weeks later, I received a letter. It arrived in a white envelope without a return address. I opened it with trembling hands. It was from Michael. "Mom, I do not know if you are going to read this. I do not know if you care what I have to say, but I need to write it. I am sorry for everything that happened. I am sorry for scaring you. I am sorry for letting it go this far. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just desperate. Linda and I are separating. She is going to go live with her mom. She is taking Valerie. I do not know when I am going to see my daughter again. I lost my job. I lost my wife. I am about to lose the house I mortgaged. And the worst of all is that I lost my mom. I am not asking you to forgive me. I know I do not deserve it. I just want you to know that I regret it. Everything. And I wish I could turn back time and do things differently, but I cannot. So I just tell you this. Thank you for everything you did for me, for raising me, for giving me a family, for loving me even when I did not know how to love you back, and sorry for everything, Michael." I read the letter 3 times each time with more tears in my eyes. It was an acknowledgement, an apology, a goodbye. But it was not enough, because words do not return what was lost. They do not repair what was broken. They do not heal what was wounded. I put the letter in a drawer, along with the photos of when Michael was a child, along with the memories of a son who no longer existed, and I kept going. The trial took place 3 months later. It was in a small room at the civil court, with a judge who looked tired, and a secretary typing everything that was said. Michael was there, alone, without a lawyer. He represented himself because he no longer had money to pay for one. He looked bad, thin, dark circles under his eyes, broken. I almost got up to hug him, almost. The judge heard both sides. Attorney Miller presented all the evidence, the power of attorney. The mortgage receipts, the photos from the day of the belt, the testimonies. Michael just repeated over and over, "I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry." The judge issued the sentence a week later. The mortgage was annulled for having been obtained fraudulently. The bank would have to assume the loss. My house was completely back in my name, without debts, without mortgages, free. Michael was sentenced to pay a fine he could never pay, and to keep the restraining order in force for 2 years. I won. But it felt like a defeat, because I had won my house, but I had lost my son, and no house, no matter how loved, is worth as much as a son, even if that son tried to destroy you. The months after the trial were the quietest of my life. Not quiet with peace, quiet with absence. Like when someone dies and the house fills with that emptiness that cannot be filled with anything. Every day I woke up waiting to hear the phone, a call from Michael, a message, anything, but nothing came. The house was officially returned to my name. Attorney Miller had given me all the papers in order, the deed clean, no mortgages, no liens, completely mine. I should have felt relief, joy, victory. But the only thing I felt was a hole in my chest that grew a little more each day. One November afternoon, 2 months after the trial, Mrs. Robinson came to visit me. She arrived with coffee and apple pie, as she always did when she knew I was sad. We sat at the kitchen table, that table that had seen so many conversations, so many meals, so many tears. "Have you heard anything from him?" asked Mrs. Robinson, although she already knew the answer. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the girl?" I shook my head. Tears began to burn my eyes before I could stop them. Sometimes I wake up in the early morning and think about her, about Valerie. I wonder how she is, if she says words yet, if she walks, if she remembers me. She is too small to remember Emily. I know, and that is what hurts the most, that I am going to be the grandmother she never knew. The grandmother who exists only in old photographs and in stories they might never tell her. Mrs. Robinson squeezed my hand on the table. "You did the right thing, you know, because it does not feel like the right thing. It feels like I destroyed my own family. You did not destroy it, honey. It was already destroyed. You just stopped pretending it wasn't." She was right as always, but that did not make it hurt less. That same week I received an unexpected call. It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. "Mrs. Emily Carter." "Yes. Who is speaking?" "It is Carla, Linda's cousin. We met at Michael's wedding." I vaguely remembered a tall girl with glasses who had been sitting at a table in the back. She had been one of the few people who had spoken to me that night. "Yes, I remember you. What happened?" "I wanted to warn you about something. About Michael and Linda." My heart started beating faster. "What happened? Are they okay? Is the girl okay?" "The girl is fine. She is with Linda at my aunt's house. But, Mrs. Emily, you need to know something. Tell me." Carla sighed. I could feel her discomfort through the phone. "Linda is planning to go to another state. She has a sister in Texas. She wants to take Valerie. Forever." I felt the ground disappear under my feet. "When in 2 weeks. She already bought the tickets. She already arranged everything. And Michael knows nothing. Linda says he has no right to have an opinion that he is a failure and that Valerie deserves something better. And why are you telling me this?" Silence. Then with a broken voice, "Because I saw how Linda treated you. Ma'am, your family, you. And it was not right. And now she is doing the same to Michael. She is taking his daughter away without him knowing. And I cannot stay silent. It is not fair. Does Michael know you are calling me? No. Nobody knows. And I ask you not to say it was me who told you, but I thought you should know. For Valerie, because that girl deserves to have her family, her whole family." We hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, trembling. Linda was going to take my granddaughter to another state far away, and Michael had no idea. I could stay silent. I could let things take their course. I could say it was not my problem, that Michael deserved it for everything he had done to me. But it was not about Michael. It was about Valerie, my granddaughter, an innocent girl who was not to blame for any of this. And in that moment, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I was going to help my son, not because he deserved it, but because it was the right thing to do. I called Attorney Miller that same afternoon. "Attorney, I need your help." Again, I told him everything. Carla's call, Linda's plans, the tickets to Texas. This is serious, Emily. If Linda takes the girl without the father's consent, she would be committing child abduction. It is a serious crime. What can be done? Michael would have to request a precautionary measure, a prohibition, so Linda cannot take the girl out of the state until the custody situation is resolved. But for that, he needs to present himself before a judge, and he needs a lawyer. Could you help him? The lawyer remained silent. Emily, after everything that boy did to you, are you sure you want to help him? I am not doing it for him, attorney. I am doing it for my granddaughter. And because if I do nothing and Linda takes her, I will never forgive myself. I understand. But there is something you should know. What if I represent Michael in this case? You would have to pay my fees because he has no money. Are you willing to do that? I thought about the savings I had left, about the pension that barely covered me, about everything Michael had already taken from me. And I thought about Valerie, about her dark eyes, about her baby smile, about the possibility of never seeing her again. Yes, attorney, I am willing. The next step was the hardest. I had to talk to Michael. I had not seen him since the day of the trial. We had not spoken since the letter he sent me months ago. The restraining order was still in force. He could not approach me, but I could look for him. I got his address through Attorney Miller. He lived in a small apartment in a neighborhood on the other side of town, a place I had never visited. I went on a Saturday afternoon. Mrs. Robinson insisted on accompanying me. You are not going alone, Emily, not after everything that happened. I did not argue. The building was old, with peeling walls and stairs that smelled of dampness. We went up to the third floor. We knocked on the door of apartment 308. No one answered. We knocked again. Finally, we heard footsteps. The door opened, and there was Michael. But it was not the Michael of the belt. It was not the Michael of the trial. It was another version of him, thinner, grayer, older. He was wearing an old T-shirt and pajama pants. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were sunken red. When he saw me, he froze. Mom. Hello, son. We stood looking at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Two strangers who were once family. What are you doing here? He finally asked. We have to talk. Can I come in? He looked at Mrs. Robinson, then at me. He hesitated. Yes, sure, come in. The apartment was tiny, a living room that was also a dining room, a narrow kitchenette, a door that led to what I assumed was the bedroom. There was no furniture, just a mattress on the floor, a plastic table, 2 folding chairs. Sorry for the mess, said Michael, quickly picking up some empty beer cans. I was not expecting visitors. We sat on the folding chairs. Michael remained standing, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. How did you find me? He asked. It does not matter how. The important thing is why I am here. Why? Because I need to tell you something. About Linda and about Valerie. I saw his body tense up. What about them? Are they okay? They are fine. But they are not going to be for long if you do not do something. I told him everything. Carla's call, the plans to go to Texas, the tickets bought, the departure date. With every word I said, I saw how Michael was crumbling. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. He covered his face with his hands. She cannot do that, he whispered. She cannot take my daughter from me. She can. And she is going to do it, unless you act now. How I have no money, I have no lawyer, I have nothing. I have a lawyer, and he is willing to help you. Michael raised his head. He looked at me with those eyes that were once a child's. Why would you help me after everything I did to you? I took a deep breath. I searched for the right words, the words that were true. I am not doing it for you, Michael. I am doing it for Valerie, because she deserves to know her family. She deserves to grow up close to her dad. And because if I do nothing and you lose her, I will never forgive myself. Not because you are my son, but because she is my granddaughter, and the mistakes you made should not cost her her future. Michael started crying, soundlessly, just tears rolling down his face, falling onto the dirty floor of the apartment. I am sorry, Mom. I am sorry so much. I know, son. I know. I do not know how to fix this. I do not know how to fix myself. One step at a time. First, we are going to fight for Valerie. Later, we will see what follows. Mrs. Robinson, who had remained silent the whole time, spoke for the first time. Son, your mom is doing something very few people would do. She is putting you above her own pain. Do not let her down again. Did you hear me? Do not let her down." Michael nodded. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I won't. I promise you, Mom. This time I won't." I did not answer, because Michael's promises meant nothing to me anymore. Only actions, only what he did from now on. Attorney Miller filed the request for a precautionary measure the next day. Monday morning, with documents, evidence, testimonies. On Tuesday, a family judge granted a temporary order prohibiting Linda from taking the minor out of the state until the custody situation was resolved. On Wednesday, when Linda tried to board the flight to Texas with Valerie in her arms, airport security stopped her. Carla called me that same afternoon. "You did it, Mrs. Emily. Linda is furious. She says you and Michael ruined her life, but Valerie did not leave. She stays here." I hung up the phone and cried. Not from sadness, from relief. My granddaughter was not going to grow up far away. She was not going to be lost forever. There was still a possibility. 3 days later, Michael came to visit me. He knocked on the door. He did not enter without permission like before. He waited for me to open. "Hi, Mom. Hi, son. Can I come in?" I hesitated. Part of me was still afraid. I still remembered the belt. I still felt the betrayal. But another part of me saw the man in front of me, not the one who had threatened me, but the one who had just lost everything and was trying to rebuild himself. "Come in." We entered the living room. We sat in the same places where we had talked so many times when he was a child, when I thought nothing bad could happen. "Thanks, Mom, for what you did. I already told you I did not do it for you. I know. But still thank you, because you could have stayed silent. You could have let Linda take her, and no one would have blamed you. I would have blamed myself. That makes you a better person than me." I did not deny it because it was true. "What is going to happen now?" I asked. "We are going to fight for custody. Attorney Miller says I have good chances. Linda has a history of irresponsible spending. She tried to flee with the girl, and I am trying to get it together. How I got a job in a warehouse. It is not much, but it is honest. I am going to therapy, one that social services offers for free, and I am trying to be the man Dad wanted me to be." His words went deep, because for the first time in years they sounded sincere, not manipulative, not desperate. "Sincere. I am glad, son. I know I cannot ask you to forgive me. I know what I did has no forgiveness, but I want you to know that I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of what you did for me, of what you always did for me. Do not do it for me, Michael. Do it for you and for Valerie." He nodded. He got up to leave. At the door he turned one last time. "Do you think someday we can be a family again?" I thought about that question, about everything it implied, about everything that had been broken, about everything that maybe, just maybe, could be repaired with time and effort. "I do not know, son, but I know the path starts with the truth. And the truth is, you hurt me. A lot. And that is not forgotten overnight. I understand. But I also know that you are my son, and that part of me is always going to love you, even if it hurts, even if it is complicated, even if we never go back to being what we were. That is more than I deserve. Probably. But that is a mother's love. It is not always fair. It is just real." He left, and I stayed in the living room looking at the closed door, wondering if I had done the right thing. The answer did not come that night, nor the next, nor the next. But with time, I started to understand something. Doing the right thing does not mean it hurts less. It means you can live with yourself afterwards, and that at the end of the day was the only thing that really mattered. Time is a strange thing. Sometimes it goes too fast, sometimes too slow. And sometimes it just passes, doing its silent work of revealing who we really are. A year passed. A year since the day of the belt, a year since the trial, a year since my life split in two, the before and the after. In that year I learned something no one teaches you when you are young, that life always collects its debts, not in the way we expect, not with the drama we imagine, but silently, inevitably, like water slowly wearing down stone. I heard about Linda through Carla, who kept calling me from time to tell me things. Not for gossip, but because according to her, someone had to know the truth. After they stopped her from going to Texas, Linda stayed living with her mom. In that big house in the rich neighborhood, she had always bragged she grew up in with all the comforts. But the comforts ended quickly. Linda's mom, Mrs. Patricia, turned out to be very different from what Linda had told everyone. She was not the rich and generous woman Linda painted. She was a bitter, controlling woman who threw in her face every dollar she spent, every plate of food she ate, every space she occupied in her house. My aunt keeps her on a short leash, Carla told me in one of our calls. She gives her schedules, makes her clean, screams at her in front of Valerie. It is as if she wanted to charge her for all the years Linda acted like a princess. And what does Linda say? Nothing. What can she say? She has no job. She has no money. She has nowhere to go. She is trapped. Trapped. The same word Linda used to describe how she felt with me when she pretended to be nice. Now she was the trapped one. Life has that way of returning things. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after the whole airport scandal, I ran into Linda at the supermarket. I did not recognize her at first. She was in the bargain aisle comparing prices of generic detergents with Valerie in a very used stroller. She had her hair up in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing an old sweatshirt and worn-out jeans. She no longer had long painted nails. They were short, unpolished, with ragged cuticles. She looked tired old, even though she was only 30. When our eyes met, I saw something in hers. Not hate, not rage, something worse, shame. She looked away quickly, grabbed the cheapest detergent without even looking at it, and pushed the cart in the opposite direction. But Valerie saw me, and even though she did not know who I was, she reached out her little hands towards me. "Hello," she said with that baby voice that breaks your heart. Linda stopped. She froze. I approached slowly, without threatening, without judging. "Hello, Valerie," I whispered. "Hello, my love." The girl smiled. She had 2 new teeth, Richard's eyes, Michael's hair. "She is very pretty," I told Linda. She did not answer. She just looked at the floor. "How are you, Linda?" For a moment I thought she was not going to answer, that she was simply going to leave without saying anything. But then she spoke with a voice so low I barely heard her. "Bad, Mrs. Emily. I am bad." I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, wanted to tell her. This is what happens when you hurt people. This is what happens when you only think about yourself. But when I saw her eyes, I only saw a broken woman, a woman who had bet everything on greed and lost. "I am sorry," I finally said. She looked up surprised. "You are sorry after everything I did to you. You are sorry, I am sorry. You are suffering. Because no one deserves to suffer, not even you." Tears began to roll down her face, without sobs, without drama. Just silent tears of someone who finally understands that her decisions have consequences. I did not know how to appreciate what I had. Michael, the house, a family that accepted me. I wanted it all. And now I have nothing. You have Valerie. Not even that. Michael is fighting for custody, and he is going to win. I know, because I am a mess, and he is changing, for real. And you? Are you changing? She shrugged. "I do not know. Maybe. Or maybe I am just getting what I deserve. No one deserves to be unhappy, Linda. But we all deserve the consequences of our decisions, and that is what is happening now. Life is charging you what you owed it." She nodded. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "Are you ever going to forgive me?" I thought about it. Honestly, I thought about it. I do not know. But I know forgiveness is not asked, for it is earned. And that takes time, a lot of time. "I understand." Valerie started crying. Linda took her out of the cart and rocked her awkwardly, without practice, without patience, like someone who never learned to be a mom, because she always thought other people would do the work for her. "Do you need help?" I asked. Linda looked at me. In her eyes there was a pride fighting with desperation. Desperation won. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I need help." Then learn to ask for it without manipulating, without threatening, without using the girl as a bargaining chip. Learn to be honest, because that is the only way out of where you are. How one day at a time, like everyone else, I walked away, leaving her there with her bargain cart and her crying daughter and the whole life she had built on lies crumbling around her. I did not feel joy, but I did not feel guilt either. I felt something deeper, truer. I felt peace because I understood something in that moment. I did not need her to suffer to feel good, but I was not going to carry her suffering as if it were mine either. Everyone had to live with the consequences of their own decisions, and that is the purest form of justice that exists. As for Michael, his story was different, slower, more complicated. He kept his word. He kept working at the warehouse. It was not a glamorous job. He carried boxes, counted inventory, cleaned floors, but it was honest, and the money he earned he used to pay his debts. Little by little, dollar by dollar, he visited me once a month, never without warning, always asking permission, knocking on the door, waiting. At first, our conversations were short, uncomfortable, full of silences that weighed more than words, but with time they became easier. Not like before, never like before, but more honest, more real. "How is therapy going?" I would ask him. "Good. Hard, but good. I am learning things about myself that I do not like, but that I need to see." Like what? Like that I always blamed others for my problems. Linda, my situation, you. But the truth is, I made the decisions, I took out the mortgage, I threatened with the belt, I destroyed our relationship, and I have to live with that. Those words coming from him meant more than any apology. "I am glad you see it, son. Do you think someday you can forgive me? I have forgiven you, Michael." But that does not mean I forget or that things go back to how they were. Forgiveness is so I can sleep in peace. It is not to turn back time. I understand. The custody trial took place 8 months after the airport incident. I went to the hearing not because Michael asked me to, but because I wanted to see with my own eyes what was going to happen to my granddaughter. The judge was a woman about 50 years old, with glasses and a serious expression that did not reveal what she was thinking. She heard both sides. Michael, who presented proof of his stable job, his therapy, his clean and tidy apartment he had prepared to receive Valerie. And Linda, who arrived without a lawyer, crying, asking for another chance, promising she was going to change, that she was going to be a better mom, that she just needed time. The judge issued the sentence a week later, shared custody, but with primary residence at Michael's house. Linda would have supervised visits until she demonstrated financial and emotional stability. Michael left the court crying with relief, with gratitude, with fear for all the responsibility that had just fallen on his shoulders. "You are going to do well, son," I told him. "You are going to make mistakes. All parents make them, but you are going to do it with love, and that is what matters. Thanks, Mom, for everything. Do not thank me yet. Show me with actions." He nodded, and he delivered. 6 months later, Michael moved to a bigger apartment with 2 bedrooms, one for him, one for Valerie. He decorated it with his own hands, painted the walls yellow, put up curtains with clouds, bought a second-hand crib, and restored it like Richard had done with the bicycle so many years ago. He invited me to see the apartment before Valerie moved in. It was humble, simple, but it was full of something I had not seen in a long time, love. "What do you think, Mom?" "I think your dad would be proud." Those words broke him. He collapsed on the second-hand sofa he had bought and cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. "I miss him so much, Mom. Every day. And every day I wish I could tell him I am sorry, that he was right, that I should have listened to him." I sat next to him, put my hand on his. "He knows, son. Wherever he is, he knows. You think I am sure." As for Linda, life continued charging her its debts. Her mom finally got tired of supporting her and gave her an ultimatum: get a job or leave. Linda got a job in a coffee shop, doing what she had always despised, serving others. At first she hated it. Carla told me she complained all the time, cried on breaks, felt life was unfair to her. But little by little, something changed. She started arriving early, doing her job without complaining, saving every dollar she earned. After a year, she had saved enough to rent a room small in a distant neighborhood, but hers, and with that room came something else, dignity. I saw her one more time almost 2 years after our meeting at the supermarket, this time at Family Court, during one of the visits with Valerie. She looked different, not like the Linda from the wedding, but not like the destroyed Linda from the supermarket either. She looked like someone who had finally understood that life owes you nothing, that everything you have to earn, and that honest work, although it hurts in the end, gives you something no shortcut can give you self-respect. We did not speak, we just looked at each other from afar, and in that look there was something similar to an understanding. We were not friends, we never would be, but we were no longer enemies. We were two women who had been through the storm and survived, each in her own way. And me, how was I? I was fine, not perfect, not without scars, but fine. My house was still mine, free of debts, free of mortgages, free of people who wanted to take it from me. Michael visited me every 2 weeks with Valerie. My granddaughter ran through the yard chasing the butterflies that visited the lilac bush, that lilac bush that kept blooming purple, bright, faithful. The girl called me Grandma Emily with that little voice that melted my heart. And when she hugged me, I felt that everything, absolutely everything that had happened, had been worth it. One Sunday after lunch, Michael and I stayed at the kitchen table while Valerie took a nap in the living room armchair. "Mom, I want to ask you something. Tell me, son, did you ever call me crazy? When everything was happening, did you tell me I was crazy for not giving you what you asked for?" I thought about it. I remembered those dark days, those nights of fear. "No, son, I never called you crazy, but there were people who thought so, who thought I was crazy for defending myself, for setting limits, for not continuing to be the mother who sacrifices herself until she disappears. And what do you think now? I think the only madness is giving up your dignity for fear of being alone, because in the end, if you give up who you are alone anyway, alone from yourself, and that is the worst loneliness of all." Michael nodded. He looked out the window towards the patio where Valerie had been playing. "I once thought you were unfair to me, that you took what was mine, but now I understand it was never mine, it was yours, and I tried to steal it from you. Not just the house, your peace, your dignity, your life. You understand because you matured, son, because life taught you. Sometimes life is the best teacher, even if it is the hardest." Did you ever see how I ended up? After everything that happened, I smiled, a sad but honest smile. I saw you, Michael. I saw you alone in that miserable apartment. I saw you without a job, without a wife, without money. I saw you hit rock bottom, and I did not feel joy, but I did not feel guilt either, because I understood something important. What? That sometimes the greatest love you can give someone is letting them face the consequences of their actions, because only then can they grow. Only then can they change. Michael wiped a tear rolling down his cheek. "Thank you for that, Mom. Thank you for not rescuing me, because if you had, I would still be the same, and Valerie would have a dad who is good for nothing. You are right, but I also tell you something. I saw you get up. I saw you change, and that son that fills me with pride." We remained in silence. That comfortable silence that can only exist between people who have walked through fire and come out the other side. Life always collects its debts. Right, Mom? Always, son, always. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it seems it will never arrive, but it always collects, and it charged me years of silence, of enduring, of not defending myself. But it also charged those who hurt me, not with my revenge, but with their own decisions. "Karma," he said. "Justice." I answered simply, "Justice." Today marks 3 years since that afternoon with the belt. 3 years since my life split in two. 3 years since I learned that sometimes defending your dignity costs everything you have, and it is worth it. I am sitting on the porch of my house in the same place where Richard used to sit and read the newspaper on Sunday mornings. The afternoon sun warms my face. The lilac bush continues to bloom in the yard. Purple, bright, faithful Valerie runs barefoot through the garden. She is 4 years old now, long hair and 2 pigtails, Richard's eyes, Michael's laugh when he was a boy. Grandma Emily. Look, a butterfly. How beautiful, my love. What color is it? Yellow, like the sun. I smile. That smile that only we grandmothers know, the one that hurts and heals, at the same time the one that carries all the weight of the world and all the lightness of hope. Michael is in the kitchen making lemonade. I can hear him moving things, humming a song, making this house his again, but in a different way, respectful, humble. He has been coming for 2 years every Sunday with Valerie to eat, to talk sometimes just to be in silence together. He is not the son I had, that son died the day of the belt, but he is the man that son could have been if life hadn't led him astray. And that man is learning to be better every day. He comes out to the porch with 2 glasses of lemonade. He gives me one and sits in the chair next to mine. Thanks, son. You are welcome, Mom. We drink in silence, watching Valerie chase butterflies, watching the afternoon slowly fall over the yard, watching life continue its inevitable course. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, son. Do you ever regret it? Of everything that happened, of having confronted me, of having revoked the power of everything? I think about it honestly. I think about it because that question deserves a true answer. I regret many things, Michael. I regret not setting limits sooner, giving you everything without teaching you the value of earning it, rescuing you every time you fell instead of letting you learn. But I do not regret defending myself, because defending myself was the only thing that saved me, and eventually you too. How me? Because if I had given you the house, if I had signed that second power of attorney, if I had continued being your lifesaver, every time you sank, you would never have learned to swim. You would never have hit rock bottom. You would never have had to look in the mirror and ask yourself who you really were, and you would never have changed. Michael nods, drinks his lemonade, looks at his daughter. You were right about everything. And I was blinded by ambition, by Linda's lies, by my own immaturity. We all get blinded sometimes, son. The important thing is to open your eyes before it is too late. It was almost too late, but it wasn't. And that is what counts. Valerie runs towards us with her hands full of flowers she pulled from the garden. For you, Grandma. They are pretty like you. I take the flowers, small battered by her little girl hands, but beautiful anyway. Thank you, my life. They are the prettiest flowers I have received in my life, prettier than my dad's. I look at Michael. He smiles. As pretty as your dad's when he was a boy, and brought me flowers from the neighbor's garden without permission. Valerie laughs, that crystalline laugh that only children have, and runs back to the garden. Did you tell her that story? Asks Michael. Of course. Children need to know their parents were also children, also made mistakes, also learned. Are you going to tell her someday what happened between us? I think about it. When she is older, when she can understand, when she needs to know that families are not perfect, that people make mistakes but can also change, and that true love is not the one that never breaks it, is the one that breaks and still finds a way to keep existing. Different, but real. Michael wipes a tear. I love you, Mom, and I am so sorry I hurt you. I know, son, I know. That night after Michael and Valerie leave, I stay alone in the house like every night, like I have been for 3 years. But I do not feel alone anymore because I understood something fundamental. Being alone and feeling alone are completely different things. I am alone because I chose to set limits, because I chose my dignity over the comfort of pretending everything was fine, because I chose to face the storm instead of hiding from it. But I do not feel alone because I have my house, my peace, my integrity, my granddaughter who visits me, my son who is learning my life that is finally mine. And that at the end of the day is all one needs. I receive an unexpected call a Tuesday afternoon. It is Linda. We have not spoken directly in almost 2 years. I have only seen her from afar during Valerie's exchanges at court. Mrs. Emily, can I speak with you? Of course, Linda. Tell me. Silence. Nervous breathing. I wanted to thank you. Thank me, why, for not letting me get away with it, for defending your house, for setting a limit when no one else did. Because if you hadn't done it, I would still be the same horrible person I was, and I would never have learned. I would never have changed. Her words surprise me not for what they say, but for how genuine they sound. And have you changed, Linda? I am trying. I am still working at the coffee shop. I saved for a baking course. I want to open my own business someday. something small but mine, earned with my effort. I am happy for you, and I am going to therapy, just like Michael. I am learning to be a better mom to Valerie, to not use money as a substitute for love, to be present, not perfect but present. That is what children need, not perfection, presence. Mrs. Emily, I know I will never be able to make up for everything I did to you. I know we are never going to be family in the traditional sense, but I want you to know that I respect you, and that if my daughter grows up being even half as strong as you, I am going to consider myself successful. I do not know what to say. The words get stuck in my throat. Thank you, Linda. That means a lot. Do you think someday we can, I do not know, have a coffee? Talk not as enemies, but as two women who went through the same thing and survived. I think about it. And I surprise myself when I say, yes, I think we can. Someday when we are ready. Thank you, Mrs. Emily, for everything, for being the mirror where I had to see myself, even if I did not like what I saw. We hang up. And I stay sitting in my living room looking at the walls of my house, thinking about how strange life is, and how the people who hurt us the most are sometimes the ones who learn the most from us, and how pain, when processed correctly, can turn into wisdom. One Sunday, 3.5 years after everything, Mrs. Robinson and I are drinking coffee in her kitchen, as we have done for 40 years, as we will continue to do until one of us is no longer here. Do you know what I admire most about you, Emily? She tells me suddenly. What? That you never became bitter after everything that happened. Many women would have become hard, resentful, closed, but not you. You continued being you, just stronger. I do not always feel strong, Mrs. Robinson. No one feels strong all the time, honey. Strength is not having no fear. It is having fear and still doing the right thing. And do you think I did the right thing? What do you think I think about it? I think about the whole road traveled, about everything lost, about everything gained. I think I did the only thing I could do, and that has to be enough. Mrs. Robinson smiles, that wise smile of someone who has lived too much and seen too much. That is not only enough, Emily, it is everything. Today, as I write this in my diary, as I leave these words as testimony of what I lived, I think about all the women who are going through the same thing I went through. The women who are being manipulated by their children, by their partners, by their family. The women who are giving and giving until they have nothing left. The women who are afraid to set limits because they fear being left alone. And I want to tell them something. It is better to be alone than accompanied by people who destroy you. It is better to lose everything than to lose your dignity. It is better to face the storm than to live under the shadow of constant threat. Because in the end, the only thing that really belongs to you is your integrity. And if you give it away for fear, for misunderstood love, for not facing conflict, then you have lost everything anyway. I lost my son for a while. I lost my granddaughter. I lost the fantasy of the perfect family that never existed. But I gained something more valuable. I gained respect for myself. I gained the peace of sleeping knowing I did not betray my principles. I gained the strength of knowing I can survive anything. And eventually, I gained back a more honest version of my family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Valerie just entered the living room. She climbs onto my lap with a storybook. "Grandma, will you read to me?" "Of course, my love. Which one do you want?" "The one about the brave princess." I smile, because life has those ironies. I open the book. It is the story of a princess who has to face a dragon. Not for a prince to save her, but to save herself. Once upon a time there was a princess who lived in a beautiful castle. I start reading. But one day she discovered that the dragon threatening her did not live outside the castle. He lived inside, and he was much harder to defeat. "Did she defeat him?" asks Valerie. "Yes, my love, she defeated him, not with a sword, but with something more powerful." "What?" "With the truth, and with the decision to stop being afraid." Valerie looks at me with those huge eyes that absorb everything. "Did you also defeat a dragon, Grandma?" My voice breaks a little. "Yes, my life. I also defeated a dragon." "And how did you do it?" "Just like the princess. With the truth. And stopping being afraid." And were you happy afterwards? I look out the window. The sun is falling on the yard. The lilac bush continues to bloom. Michael is in the kitchen preparing dinner. The house smells of beans and tortillas. Home. Yes, my love, I was happy. Not always, not perfectly, but I was happy, because finally I was free. Valerie smiles and snuggles against my chest. I also want to be brave like you, Grandma. You already are my life. You already are. If my story helps just one woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If my pain serves for someone else to set limits before it is too late, it will have made sense. If my experience gives strength to another grandmother, another mother, another woman who is being manipulated by those she should love, then every tear I shed will have watered something good. Because life always collects its debts. Always. Not with our revenge, but with its own consequences. And in the end, the only thing left is the truth of who we are, of what we did, of what we chose to defend. I chose to defend myself, and I do not regret it, because in that terrible moment, when my son raised the belt, when my daughter-in-law laughed when I thought I had lost everything, someone rang the doorbell, and that someone was life itself reminding me I was not alone, that I was never alone, that there is always a way out when you have the courage to seek it. Today I live in my house, the house I paid for with 40 years of work, the house I was about to lose, the house I defended with everything I had. And every morning when I wake up and see the sun coming through my window, I give thanks. Not because everything is perfect, but because it is mine, earned, defended, deserved. And that in the end is the only thing that matters. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe. And activate the bell to listen to more stories of women who transform their pain into wisdom. Every day a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. God bless you, and until next time.